YCS Vancouver is in just 3.5 months, and I'm going to try to get a top with Dark Magician. Over the course of these next few months, join me on this progression and my journey to make Dark Magician as competitive as possible. Deep dive with me into my thoughts, theories, and let's craft the most optimal list for the 2023 format, ultimately leading me to the ultimate prize of a YCS top with my favorite deck. Hello you beautiful people. Over the last week or so, we've been taking a version of my most recent Dark Magician list to locals. I've been graciously given permission by not only the store owner, but also my opponents to record some of these matches. Let's jump into some of these games that we recently played, and I'll try my very best to talk about not only the list, but also how it performed. This is the first time I'm doing something like this, so please leave a comment and tell me how I can make this experience better, not only for myself, but for you guys as well. The first game of this video, our opening hand is Illusion of Chaos, 2 Blazing Cartesias, Branded Fusion, and Secret Village. Our opponent is playing Earth Machines in this situation, and my game plan here is set up Dragoon, activate Village, and we'll see where this goes. This hand isn't that optimal, although that Branded Fusion Cartesia does help to extend our plays like tenfold. So we're going to use our Illusion Chaos line of play, right? Getting Souls. Souls is going to summon DM here. And then we're going to normal summon our Cartesia because our next action is going to be Branded Fusion. And if our Albion or Lubellion or whatever we decide to summon off the Branded Fusion gets impermed, we can then chain Cartesia and dodge it, right? So that's kind of the reasoning behind summoning Cartesia first. Here I am thinking about a target, and I'm thinking I don't want to discard anything in my hand, so I do think the Albion is the correct line of play. So we're going to send our second Cartesia, right? Because that's technically follow-up here. We are going to summon our Albion, and our opponent is going to have the Bell. Unfortunately, Albion's not going to be able to fuse Dragoon. However, our Cartesia can. So we're going to chain Cartesia to the activation of Bell, and we're going to fuse our copy of Albion and our Dark Magician from field to summon that copy of Dragoon. Now what this is going to enable us is Albion's going to trigger in the end phase, grabbing our Branded Fusion, as well as the Cartesia that's already in the grave is going to be live, right, to come back to our hand. Here we activate our Village, and this is where we resolve all our end phase effects. Our opponent was not happy about us activating Village. He's going to have no starters in his hand, and from what I remember is he did open up quite a few spells, or at least his starters were spells, right? So he's going to draw his 6th card, realize he can't play, and he's going to scoop it up. That's it for the first match of the video. Now let's just move on to the next one. It was a quick one, but yeah, we have plenty of more where that came from. This is game 2 of the video. Our opening hand in this game is Magician's Rod, Fallen of Albaz, Magician's Souls, Soul Servant, and Shadal's Schism. Now this is game 2 or 3, I believe, and I know my opponent's on Branded. Now my hand does have access to Dragoon via the Souls and Rod line. That gets me to, Dragoon through Timaeus. However, I think Brandon has way too much gas and is going to deal with that easy. So this is a situation where I said, okay, we're going for the gamble. We're going to normal summon our Rod, and we're going to get Secrets of Dark Magic. Remember, we do have Fallen of Albaz in hand. So Secrets of Dark Magic is going to be able to fuse with Dark Magician and the Fallen of Albaz to make our Dragoon, as well as giving us a little bit more on board. We also have the Soul Servant, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send Dark Magician Girl off Magician Souls, and the purpose of this is let's see what we get off gambling off the draw 2 off Soul Servant, right? So Magician Souls will draw will discard the Schism, and we'll chain Soul Servant, stacking Dark Magician. And I think you can see where this is going to come from, right? With Dark Magician stacked, we're going to draw it, and now we're going to activate our Secrets of Dark Magic to fuse the Fallen of Albaz and the Dark Magician to our Dragoon. There's our Dragoon, right? I know my opponent's on Nib. He nibbed me in game 1, I believe. So we immediately play around the nib. Then we have the draw 2 of Soul Servant, and look what we draw into. We draw into the Blazing Cartesia. Got to love that. Now Blazing Cartesia and Rod will fuse into Grand Guignol, and Grand Guignol will send Shadal Winda. Remember, we discarded Schism off Souls, so Winda can revive that or bring back that Schism to our hand, which gives us access to it. Here we'll set Schism, and in the end phase we'll grab back Cartesia. Fortunately for us, this isn't an optimal end board. However, our opponent didn't open optimally himself. He's going to start off by thinking here, and he's going to activate Polymerization. Now, in theory, what I should have done here is I should have let it resolve or negated it with Dragoon. However, I opted to chain Schism. The problem with chaining Schism in this situation is if he goes for Guardian Chimera, I don't think the deck has a genuinely easy way outing it, right? So this was kind of an incorrect play. However, we were fortunate enough for him not to open up multiple monsters. So he was just able to make Lubellion in this situation. And with Winda on the field, right, Lubellion can't activate its effect to fuse from field, right? So here he's immediately down significant card advantage. We have Winda, we have Dragoon, and here we're going to activate Magician's Rod, adding Grang back to hand. Now we have Rod and Cartesia in hand with Fallen of Abad's engraved. He's going to opt to swing over the Winda, and I'm just going to let it go through, right? Because there's nothing really I could do here. He's going to activate Nadir. Thank God I held that Dragoon negate. We're going to negate the Nadir Servant, and this is kind of where he sets one. In the end phase, we're going to grab back our Cartesia that we just discarded off Dragoon, free discard fodder. Dragoon will pop the Lubellion. Here we're going to normal summon Rod, activate Rod's effect. He knows we have Cartesia in hand. He knows we have game on board. And that's it for game 2. Game 3 of the video. Our opponent is a really good Runic player, and he's been trying to make this Naturia Runic deck work post banlist, which, you know, kudos to him. It's one of his favorite decks, and he's been cooking with it. In this game, our opening hand was Blazing Cartesia, 2 copies of Secret Village, Illusion of Chaos, and Cosmic Cyclone. This is going to be a perfect example on why and how oppressive this deck can actually get. Because believe it or not, this isn't an optimal hand. This is very lackluster at best. So what I'm going to do here is I'm Illusion of Chaos into Magician's Souls, because what I want to do is I'm going to pitch the 1 Cosmic and the 1 Secret Village to potentially draw 2 and draw into more combo pieces. You'll quickly realize that that doesn't exactly happen. So we're going to activate Magician's Souls here, sending Dark Magician to special summon it. So now we're going to normal summon our Blazing Cartesia to play around any sort of infinite impermanence. The only card that really kills us here is kind of Ash Blossom. So that's why I'm thinking, do I discard 2 or discard 1? Because remember, I still need the discard for App Clone for the window play, because this is what it is. Our 2 draws weren't optimal. If I do remember correctly, one of them was another copy of Cosmic Cyclone. We are going to activate Cartesia to fuse into Grang and Yol here, and Grang and Yol will pitch our copy of El Shaddoll Apkalon. Apkalon will now get our copy of Shaddoll Schism. Oh, I now remember what the second draw was off Souls. It was another copy of Magician's Souls. Our 2 draws were Cosmic Cyclone and Magician's Souls. So we're going to add our Shaddoll Schism from deck to hand here, and we're going to discard our Magician's Souls. Now, this hand is kind of going to be set to and pass and activate Village. Here, I really know my opponent's on Runic. I know he's been trying to make Naturia Runic work, and I know Village is going to be so incredibly oppressive against this deck, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to wait for that first normal summon, and we're going to shotgun Schism, and we're going to really, really attempt to oppress our opponent here, right? We're going to try to let him do absolutely nothing. Shaddoll Schism will resolve, and we're going to fuse our Apkalon and our copy of Magician's Souls into our copy of Winda. Here, he's going to be activating his Naturia Camellia's effect to send Mole Cricket from deck to grave. Unfortunately here, if I do remember correctly, he will just set the 1 card and pass turn here. Now, in the end phase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change Cosmic Cyclone to really get rid of that threat. It was that Synchro Floodgate Barrier card, which is actually incredible. Have you guys read that card? I suggest reading it. It's for you Synchro lovers. It's a crazy card, and it's going to be a really major floodgate, especially with Synchros really gaining traction in the upcoming format. So in this situation, what I know is his deck has a lot of gas. However, I also know his deck can't really play through this board as well as he'd like to. So with Souls and Cartesia in hand, I opt to not really push for game, even though in hindsight, I probably should have. So here I'm just going to swing over his Camellia and swing for some damage. And we're going to pass turn here, right? Because I know that if he doesn't have anything here, I kind of win, but I also want to maximize my resources. Here he shocked me summoning Kashtira Unicorn. And believe it or not, it's actually a very interesting tech. He opts to out my Winda to attempt a special summon. However, with Village still up and a Runic heavy deck, right? Most of his hand is spells at this point, I believe, and he can't really play regardless. So what he's going to opt to do is Unicorn. He's going to banish my other copy of Shaddoll Winda, so he's not interlocked to special summons next turn, and hopefully he can deal with my Secret Village by then. So he's going to pass turn here, and what's going to happen... Oh, sorry, before passing turn, he's going to get his birth, and he's going to end up passing turn to us. Now I have a decision to make. Now here, I know his Unicorn has 1 more banish out of my extra deck because I'm going to activate a monster effect. However, he's going to opt to banish Dragoon here, I believe. And I think, okay, this is going to be my window to really push for game here. We're going to send our Dark Magician Girl. Now, immediately we have the one copy of Dark Magician Girl and the one copy of Dark Magician Engrave. We did draw the Soul Servant off the top deck. So we're going to use our Magician Souls to pitch our copy of Schism and our Soul Servant. Here we're going to banish our Soul Servant and draw another 2 cards. That's 4 cards. We immediately replenished our hands and we have so much gas at this point. This is kind of where we take over the game. We have just way too much gas. He's not going to be able to stop us. We ended up drawing Branded Fusion as well. Here we're going to activate our Branded Fusion, and I think this is kind of where the game gets out of hand. We're going to send our copy of Fallen of Albaz and our copy of Magician's Rod, because in our opponent's turn, if a spell or trap card is activated, kind of Magician's Rod will trigger, potentially getting us more follow-up. We're going to summon our Lubellion. Our Lubellion will activate. Here we will shuffle back our Dark Magician and our copy of Lubellion from the field. Reason being is because I want Fallen of Albaz in grave still, just to special summon Cartesia, or have that ability to special summon Cartesia, because we have Cartesia in our hand. So we're going to summon our Dragoon. We're going to special summon our Cartesia after Dragoon pops the Unicorn, and this is it. That's enough for game. Our opponent scoops it up and off to... Our second to last match of the day was against Sky Striker. In our opening hand, we have Dark Magician Girl, Fusion Deployment, Branded Fusion, Magician's Rod, and Timaeus the United Dragon. Here we're going to activate Fusion Deployment to summon our Cartesia by revealing Granguignol. This is so that we could play around Imperm if he has Imperm or Effect Veiler, and he decides to target our Magician's Rod, right? That's what pretty much this is for. And what we're going to do here is we're now going to normal summon our Magician's Rod to grab our Secrets of Dark Magic. The reason for secrets is in this situation is mainly for the resource generation through the Dark Magicians. Our hand is going to be incredibly heavy on the discards, so I think just having that access to the Dark Magicians here is going to be so unbelievably important, because it's essentially going to give us an extra card in hand as well as keeping our Dragoon live, right? Because that's essentially what we're making. We're going to activate our Branded Fusion now, sending our Fallen of Albaz and our copy of the Dark Magician. Now, what this is going to make is going to make that Lubellion once again playing around any Effect Veilers or any Imperms or whatever. And here we're going to use the Dark Magicians to draw 1 card. That card ends up being Duality. This is kind of where I do kind of make a misplay, because Cartesia ends up going into Granguignol. However, with Duality in hand, I think the correct play was have Cartesia or Granguignol send Albion, chaining Duality to get another Dragoon on board. Sky Striker have such a hard time dealing with Dragoon, let alone 2 of them. And I feel like my thought process at the time was, they summon a lot. They're gonna try to special summon a lot, and I think that window lock is gonna apply so much pressure. Me not thinking that clearly, Sky Striker have an unbelievable amount of outs to window, right? They have Engage, they have Widow Anchor, etc. And I kind of think that the extra discard in this situation was hefty, right? Because ultimately, if we don't pitch the Duality, which you'll see in a few seconds, we kind of do have the 2 discards for the 2 Dragoons, right? However, we end up sending the El Shadal Apkalon, we end up getting El Shadal Schism, and then we're going to send our copy of Duality that we drew off the Dark Magicians. Here we'll banish our Duality to end up drawing 1 card by shuffling back the Lubellion to have it back in the extra deck, and the 1 copy of Dark Magician Girl, because it's not really doing anything in the graveyard, because we don't have access to the Soul Servant and what have you. So we'll set the 1 card, and in the end phase, we'll grab back our Cartesia, and we'll pass turn here. Our opponent's going to draw his card, and he's going to immediately start with Upstart Goblin, turning on the Dark Magicians to draw 1 card. Now, this is where I'm getting a little worried, because now all of his Triple Tactics talents, his thrusts, they're all live. So I have to use my Dragoon Negate as effectively as possible. I know he's going to be digging for those for Triple Tactics Thrusts and Triple Tactics Talents to deal with my Dragoon, because no other card in his deck can actually deal with it. Here, he's going to activate Sky Striker Engage to start, generating assets. And Sky Striker is one of those decks where it's just going to snowball advantage, right? So what I need to do here is this Dragoon negate is going to be so unbelievably important. He gets the, I forget what this card is called, but it's the essentially pop, right? He's going to be able to pop a monster and then pop a spell and trap card. So right away, I kind of understand. Here he activates Shark Cannon. He's targeting my App Cologne, so now is the time to chain it. Chain Shaddoll Schism. We're going to chain it into our App Cologne, and we're going to banish our Fallen of Albaz, because I kind of want Magician Rod Engrave to tribute the Grand Guignol here and to add it back to hand, as Grang is kind of also dead on the field because its effect can essentially be triggered in grave as well. Unfortunately, our opponent does have the Imperm for our Winda. Here I have a decision to make. Do I opt to negate the Imperm and kind of continue to floodgate my opponent? However, I know my opponent has several outs to Winda. He has access to Widow Anchor, etc, 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 and Thrust and or Talents just wins this matchup for him. So I opt to keep my Dragoon negate. And here my opponent's going to go through his standard Scar Striker combo, you know, summoning Ray, going into Hayate, Kagari, etc, triggering Engage 38 times because, you know, why not? And what he's going to do here is he's just digging through his deck to essentially see that Talents or Thrusts. I do end up using my Dragoon negate in the battle phase, unfortunately. I just didn't want him to just snowball that advantage, where he ends up hitting me with Afterburner. Here there was a ruling dispute, so please let me know if the ruling is incorrect or if I cheated at all. And I apologize to my opponent if I did. But essentially, if Winda and Shaddoll Schism get sent to the graveyard at the same time, ruling was ruled in my favor in terms of Winda allowing me to add back Schism. So please let me know in the comments below whether or not that's correct or incorrect. But we're slowly approaching the end of my opponent's turn, where he hasn't been able to deal with Dragoon. He hasn't been able to draw that Talents. He hasn't been able to draw that Thrusts. So we're actually looking very good. Here he's resolving all his end phase effects, you know, his Shizuku, I believe it is. And then his multi-roll is going to trigger, setting his Widow Anchor and setting his, I believe it's his Linkage or Engage. He ended up setting one of them, and he ended up passing turn. Off the rip, we end up top decking our copy of Branded Fusion, which is massive. We're going to special summon our Cartesia, and with Branded Fusion, this is kind of game, I believe. We're going to normal summon our Rod, and Rod is going to search our Soul Servant because discard fodder, why not? Who doesn't love an extra card? Here we're thinking about, okay, do we have Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician Engrave? We don't. So at this point, the Soul Servant is just discard fodder. Here we're going to activate Magician Souls, and Magician Souls will essentially pitch our copy of Dark Magician, and we're going to summon it, because what I'm scared of is he's going to have that Widow Anchor, he's going to have an Imperm or whatever, so we're going to need a dragon on board to chain Cartesia to, assuming, you know, our Albion gets interrupted, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're going to summon Albion, and if Albion ends up trying to get interrupted, we're going to chain our Cartesia, and I believe this is going to be game, right? We're going to pitch our Timaeus and our Fallen of Albaz. He's going to opt to Effect Veiler. We're going to chain our Cartesia. He's going to chain Widow Anchor, and we're going to negate with our Dragoon. He's going to scoop it up, and that's game. Into the final game of the video, our opening hand is Magician Souls, Bestial Magnema, Blazing Cartesia, Branded Fusion, and Secret Village. We open the nuts, and our opponent has no interruptions. We end up popping off. Magician Souls will special summon Dark Magician from deck to play around any Bestials. We're playing Dragon Link, forgot to mention. We're going to normal summon our Cartesia and activate our copy of Branded Fusion, sending our copy of Fallen of Albaz, and our second copy of Blazing Cartesia. The reason being is I want both Cartesias in rotation the entire time. Here we're going to summon our Albion, and Albion will activate its effect. However, what we're going to be doing now is we're also going to be chaining Cartesia to fuse our Albion and our Dark Magician for our copy of Dragoon. Now, what our Albion will trigger, banishing our copy of Dark Magician and our copy of Fallen of Albaz to make our second Dragoon. Then we activate our Secret Village. Our opponent has actually a very funny laugh here. In the end phase, we activate Albion to grab our Branded Fusion. We're going to get our Cartesia and our Bestial Druid Swarm. What a board. Now, would you believe me if I told you that our demon of an opponent ends up breaking this board? It's actually unbelievable. He's going to start with Lubellion, searching Magnemut, and Magnemut's going to banish our Albion. Now that he has a monster on board, we're going to chain our Druid Swarm on his Bestial Lubellion to summon our Druid Swarm. So now we have an immediate pop with our Cartesia as a fusion material, right? He's going to have normal summoning his rocket monsters. We're going to chain our Cartesia to summon Grang, Jerusalem will pop his Magnemite, and then he special summons a rocket monster. This is where he goes crazy. Has just so much gas. I think it's going to be a really incredible deck for the next format. It's also really fun to play, so full credit to our opponent here. He went demon mode. He ended up breaking our board. However, it's not over yet. We get our Cartesia in the end phase, and now it's kind of do or die. We need to play through all of his interruptions as well as possible, because at the end of the day, he only has 2 to 3 interruptions with Bestial Jerusalem in hand. We end up drawing triple tactics talents for turn, which is going to help us a lot, not with necessarily taking any monster, however with a draw 2 here that you'll see in a bit. We're gonna normal summon our Cartesia, and then we're gonna activate our branded fusion. Our branded fusion will probably be negated here, which he's thinking about, and yes, he will negate it. He'll negate. We'll draw our 2 cards for potential follow-up. We draw into Dark Magicians, the Dark Magician Girl, which is kind of interesting in this situation, because now what we're going to do is we're going to activate our Blazing Cartesia's effect to fuse Dark Magician Girl and Cartesia into the Dark Magicians. Now, my thought process here is if I can crash the Dark Magicians, I can then special summon Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl from deck to field. That being said, it'll give me access to Dark Charmer, which will then give me access to Celine, which will then give me access to Access Code. Now, of course, you know, he still has 2 interruptions, so this has to be a perfect situation. This has to be timed as perfectly as possible. What's going to happen here is we still have that Bestial Jerusalem in hand, so we're gonna activate that, hoping to bait a negate. He is gonna bait. I'm gonna be targeting the copy of Magnemite. He's gonna chain his own Jerusalem on the copy of Magnemite, which unfortunately means he still has his Dispatter. I completely forgot about the Jerusalem in hand. He's gonna have the Dispatter on field, which will ultimately negate the Dark Magicians from special summoning both DM and DMG. And the reason why I can go into the access code line is because Branded Fusion was negated. Its activation got negated, which doesn't lock me into fusions at all, which is kind of the thought process I had here. Unfortunately, he does end up negating the Dark Magicians with his Dispatter, and ultimately that's the game. I have no more follow-up. That being said, it was an incredible game. Full credit to my opponent. He is an absolute machine when it comes to this game, and you know, I look to learn a lot from him. Before ending the video, I want to thank each and every single one of you for watching these games with me. Hopefully they were of some help to you. I know watching them back made me see alternative lines of play I could have taken, as well as improving not only game states but my technical play also. If you have any suggestions on what content I should do, not only with the series, but any content in general, please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.